Hello and welcome to COMPSCI 1MD3 Tutorial 1. So my apologies for a bit of a late start. I literally just biked home as soon as I could. So normally I get the stream up more like 5 minutes before start. So my apologies for posting it a bit closer to the deadline. I'm just going to relax here for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just in case anybody just saw the link on Avenue. Yeah, so this being the first tutorial, I guess you won't really get started until 4:35. Until then, I guess I can just introduce myself and talk a bit about the course, but we won't really be getting started until 4:35. So if any of you guys are busy doing other things or such, no worries at all. I totally understand. Feel free to tune me out until 4:35, which is when the tutorial will really get started. Cool. Is this for tutorial 5? So my assumption was that this was T06, but I think there was some issues with the tutorial scheduling. I will say all of the tutorials are exactly the same, so it doesn't really matter which one you attend. Yeah, so whether it's T05 or T06 doesn't matter. These are just meant, it's all the same content regardless, so you can attend any one. I will also like to applaud you guys for your strong academic discipline, choosing a Friday afternoon tutorial. So yeah, you guys really decided to start your weekend late, I guess. Yeah, so my name is Swale, and I am the TA for this tutorial. I've been a TA for about 4 years now. I'm in my final year of mechanical engineering studies, and I've been a COMPSCI TA only for about 3 semesters. My specialization is in robotics and Industry 4.0. So if any of you guys love manufacturing and manufacturing lines, we'll get along great together. Yeah, so for any of you guys tuning right now, because I posted the links like really close to the start, I'm going to wait till 4:35 to get started so you guys can tune me out till then. Or you can listen to my sage wisdom as an upper year about how to succeed at Mac. So the one thing that I really hope the red suits and your welcome week reps really drilled into you is relax. Okay, I know first year is really daunting. You guys are worried about like co-op and grades and all this stuff already. Just chill. I promise you guys will have a great time. Don't get too stressed because the main benefit, the main thing you get out of university is not the grades. It's not the TAs. We're not worth that much, but it's your social network, like, you know, meeting all of these other people that have the same interests as you. Yeah, and that's why I love Mac. Mac has a great community, and I love being a TA for you first years because I'm always like so blown away by how smart you guys are. I swear every incoming class is just like that much smarter than the previous. Yeah, so if you guys want, you can introduce yourself into the chat if you want to. I love meeting. I like to memorize all of the students' names before the end of the year. Yeah, this was an in-person tutorial. I'd probably have like Timbits and such, but you have to make do with some other stuff instead in the meantime. Yeah, so this course is on Python 3. I imagine a lot of you guys have already taken a Python 3 class back in your high school. In that case, this course is going to be really redundant. Regardless, I think it's useful for getting you all up to the same speed. And I'm confident that you guys all agree the main way you learn to code isn't like through class and through lectures and someone like telling you to read a textbook. But the main way you guys will learn to code is probably through like projects and such. So I imagine like, okay, no worries if you have no experience with coding. That's cool. Cool. Okay, I'll get started in 1 minute. Anybody in Brampton doing this live stream during? Anybody streaming from Brampton? That's where I am from now. Yeah, so my apologies because I'm in Brampton. You're gonna hear somebody like come blaring down the street and they're, you know, souped up like Civic every 5 minutes. So my apologies for that, you know, coming through the audio. It's just the unfortunate part of living here. But I took half code, half Python. Okay, that's cool, Nicholas. Yeah, any coding experience is sure to help, even like Scratch or something. Cool. Yeah, so I guess I'll just get started by going to Avenue and going through the course syllabus really quickly. So let me just log into Avenue and then I'll share my screen. Cool. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so if I navigate to Avenue, I can go to COMPSCI 1MD3. And I'm going to go to Content. And then I will go to the course syllabus, which I'll download. Cool. Now, the first thing that I want to really point out in this course syllabus that I'm sure you guys have all read is if you scroll down to the course breakdown, in terms of grades, you'll see there is 40% for assignments, 30% for the midterms, and 30% for the final exam. What you guys should notice is that there is no section for the tutorials. That means these tutorials have no graded component. There's no in-class quiz. I'm not going to take attendance. These tutorials are meant to only supplement your understanding of how to code. It's meant to provide you additional practical experience with coding. But that also means that you guys, if you feel like you can learn the content without the tutorials, that's totally okay. These are not mandatory. And I can feel people clicking away already, which I totally understand because I'm sure you guys as university students are like really busy and have so many things going on. So I totally understand if you have to prioritize what you pay attention to. My one tip would be is I'd recommend continuing with the tutorials at least until the first midterm, then see how it goes. If you feel like you understand the midterm without anyone's help, that's great. You can optimize your time and be more efficient with it. So I'd recommend to hang on with me until the first midterm. That's my own personal advice. It's up to you totally. Okay, cool. So here you see the emails of all of the TAs. So there are two tutorial TAs. One is me, Swale, or Mohammed Swale. That's my email right here. And the other TA is Indika, who just got hired actually. So I don't think her email's up there yet. But basically, as a tutorial TA, it's my job to help you learn how to code. So essentially, I'm supposed to help you learn how to actually not only answer textbook questions, but actually make practical code to solve real world problems. Now, in my opinion, the whole benefit of the tutorials, like at least when they were in class, was that like we could all meet up in one room. I could post a bunch of coding problems to work on, and then like we could all work on them together. And if anyone gets stuck, I would work with that person individually. It's really hard to provide that experience with like two-way communication over like a live stream. This is a lot more of a one-way didactic method, right? So this tutorial has essentially became a bit more like a lecture format. And I always felt really silly about that because I'm sure there's so many better people who make YouTube tutorials on how to code, like, you know, Khan Academy or Bucky from New Boston or whatever you guys are using to code nowadays. I think like Centex is pretty popular with the young kids. And so I guess like the point of tutorial then is really just to show you problems that will be similar to like midterm problems to help you really understand how to you know, get good marks in the course. Okay, cool. Yeah, so essentially I think what I'll be doing for most of the tutorials is I'll just show some slides with a bunch of coding problems, and then we'll go through the problem one by one. And if you guys don't know how to answer the problems, that is totally okay. Just leave me a comment in the comment section and I'll try to help you along. And I guess that's how we can try it out. That's what I did last semester. It seemed to work pretty well. But if you guys have any advice on how to optimize online learning, I'm all ears. Okay. Cool. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is Jupyter Hub. Has anybody here used Jupyter Hub before? PO, I don't know what that means, but yeah, it's pretty much basics. If you guys think you already know how to code and you want to tune out, that's totally cool. So okay, I actually debated using Teams or Zoom or YouTube. My theory was that like more students would access content if it's on YouTube as opposed to Zoom or Teams. At least that's what I saw last semester when we had one TA doing YouTube, one TA doing Teams. But yeah, if that's something you guys want to do instead, I'm open to it. But we're already on YouTube right now, so let's just continue that way. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is Jupyter Hub. So Jupyter Hub is where all of the assignments and midterms will take place. So essentially, we have a private Jupyter Hub server, and if you access this server, you can see the assignments. Now, here's the thing. I am currently not on a McMaster Wi-Fi network, and you can only access like McMaster resources when you're on the McMaster network. So if I try to access this at home, like I imagine you all will, you'll run into trouble. So what I can do to access Jupyter Hub at home is I can turn on the McMaster VPN, and then I can connect. Oh my God. And after I establish a VPN to the McMaster network, I can access Jupyter Hub from home. And I think I have the login credentials. Yeah, I do. And basically, I can log in and I can access the assignments. And I'm an admin, so I can see them all. But I think you only have access to A1 so far. So assignment 1 has already been released, and I think it's due on the 27th. So you guys can take a crack at it if you like. Okay. In addition to that, I want to mention that all of the assignments and midterms are automatically graded. So basically, their Jupyter Hub, you can compile and execute code on the server, and it'll be auto-graded by comparing the output of your code to whatever the correct output should be. So with that in mind, one thing I really hope you guys listen to is the part of the syllabus that talks about academic integrity. So it's really dumb to cheat in a coding course because all of your code is auto-graded. In addition to that, it gets automatically compared to all of the other students' code. So it can really easily flag a student's submission if it's too similar. So please don't cheat for any of the coding problems. I'm very confident in your guys' ability and that you guys can pass without needing to, get too much help from your friends. So please don't cheat or share code at any point during the midterms or assignments. And if you need help with anything, just ask a TA and we should be able to help you along appropriately. Cool. Okay, and I think the last thing I want to talk about is actually, I'll talk about 2 more things. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to get help in COMPSCI 1MD3. So you are more than welcome to contact me or to contact any other of the TAs for any of your coding issues. But each of the TAs are doing different jobs in this course, and so we're best suited to answer different things. So for example, as a tutorial TA, I'm best to help out with stuff that happens in tutorials. Anna and Nishant are the ones that are making the midterm and assignment questions. So they're probably going to have a better understanding with those two. And then finally, Mark is managing Jupyter Hub, so you can ask him if you have any like server issues. But really, whenever you have a question, the first place that I'd recommend posting that question is on the Piazza page. So the link to the Piazza class is right here. And I recommend that because there is one TA whose job it is just to check the Piazza page and answer any class questions. And more likely, if you ask me a question, I'm probably going to double check with the Piazza TA to make sure we're in sync about what the answer should be. So you can probably get a quicker answer and short circuit that process by asking on the Piazza page directly. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about is Anaconda. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have used Anaconda before or used it in your high school or anything, but Anaconda is a data science toolkit that's really useful for a variety of things. But the reason we like to use it is because it comes with a package of Conda, Python, and Jupyter. So if you want to get everything you need for this course all at once, you can just download Anaconda, and that will install a local version of Jupyter, Python 3, and Conda. But in terms of what we're doing tutorials, it's a lot more basic than that. and we'll be doing just some basic coding questions, and you're welcome to use any IDE that you want to. Me personally, I'm going to be using just the regular standard idle IDE because that's the most common one. I think that's the most popular one you'll see in your coding career. So I think it's good to get started coding using that one. But yeah, no matter what IDE you use, the results will all be the same. And regardless, you'll all be handing in the code on the same place, which is Jupyter Hub. Okay, so if any of the stuff I talked about you had any questions about or a bit confused about, I posted in the YouTube video some links, and these links detail how to set up a VPN, like how to get the software on your machine if you need to make a network connection. It also details how to set up Jupyter if you're having issues with Jupyter. And I have one video that actually Basil made, a TA from the previous year, on how to submit assignments. So if you have any questions about any of these things, check out these videos. I hope those videos help you. If you have additional questions, then of course ask me or any of the other TAs. Okay, cool. Now with that said, let's get into coding. Okay, so for this class, we'll be using the Python version Python 3. So I'm going to get Python on my machine by just searching up Python, and I'll go to the Python website, and I'll go to download, and I'm going to download any version of Python that starts with a 3. So any version of Python 3 we can use for this course. And so all I have to do is download Python and then run the installer. I've already have Python installed on this machine, so I don't need to install it again, but it's a really easy installer. Just run through it, get it set up on your machine. If you have a 64-bit machine, I suppose get Python 64-bit, but again, it doesn't really matter. Python works no matter what. That's what makes it so great. Cool. And then if you already have Python set up, I'd recommend going over to Avenue and going to the announcements page. And you can open up the slides. Cool. And on these slides, I have some coding questions that we'll be completing today. All right. Okay, so you guys can hop on over there, and I'm going to just take a look. Yeah, so so generally Mark should be able to reset your account. Mark or Sebastian maybe, but Sebastian's a bit busy, so I'd try either of them. So hopefully if you email them, they can reset those options. I don't have access with my account to reset that on Jupyter Hub, unfortunately. Yeah, if you guys want to use, if you guys really want to use Zoom or Teams or something else, just let me know. I hate both Zoom and Teams, so I hope not. But you guys can vote in like the comments section. Okay, and I am going to get started coding. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the idle IDE, or I guess the IDE for Python, which is idle. So I'm going to search up idle in my taskbar, and I'm going to open up idle for Python 3. Cool. And then I'm going to make a new Python script. So I'm going to go to File, New File, and I'll just split screen like that. Cool. And I'll save my code. Okay, so I get the feeling this might be T05, not T06. I might have the numbers flipped, but I'm going to call this T06 for now. So let me just find work. Yeah, there we go. COMPSCI 1MD3. This is the fall semester, tutorial 1. I'm going to call this T06. My apologies if this is really T05. I'll talk with Indika after to figure that out. Okay, and I'm going to save my Python file with some arbitrary name. Let's call it hello. Okay? Yeah. Okay, cool. So the first thing that I'm going to learn how to do in Python is I'm going to learn how to output data on my screen. I want to learn how to output data to the user, which is also me. So in order to print out data on the screen, I use something called a print statement. So a print statement is just the word print followed by 2 brackets. And whatever I put in between these 2 brackets will show up on the screen. So if I put in, let's say, a number like the year 2020, and I run my code, well, then 2020 shows up on the screen. If I put 2021, then 2021 shows up on the screen. Easy, easy. Okay. Now I can print multiple things if I want to, right? So I can print different stuff, different numbers. Print is super simple to use. If I run my code now, I'm printing out all of these values. In addition to that, I can also do operations inside of the print statement. So I can do 2021 plus 5. And what's that? I can't do quick math, so let's see. Yeah, 2026. Wow, fancy. Cool. So this is the print statement, and I can print as a way of outputting some data from the computer onto the screen so the user can see it. So it's a way of sending data from the computer to the user. Cool. So the next thing I want to talk about is something called a variable. And a variable is a tool that we use to store data in Python. So let's suppose I initialize a variable called, let's say, num, short for number, or how about year, actually. I'll call my variable year, and I'll say that's equal to 2020. Well, now, instead of passing in 2020 in my print statement, I can pass in just the variable year. And how Python works is when it's going through this code line by line, because we see that we're setting year equal to variable, whenever Python then sees year in the code, it will replace that variable with its equivalent value. And if you don't believe me, which is fair enough, I'll run the code. And as you see, it prints out 2020. Okay. Now, a key thing to keep in mind about variables is that they are not immutable. We can change variables if you want to. So initially, I can set the variable equal to 2020. Then I can set it equal to, let's say, 2021. And if I print out the year variable again, this time instead, it'll print out 2021. If I want to, I can do some math on the year variable. So I can say year is equal to, let's say, year plus 5. Now, if I print out the year variable again, it prints out the new value. Easy enough. Okay. Let me, oh, sorry, wrong one. You go to the comments. Yeah, so all of the tutorials pretty much use the same content. You're welcome to use whatever tutorial you want to in order to get that content. If you really want to, you can just go into my channel. You can see the same tutorial played over and over again, and you can just watch that video instead. But if you wait till the end of the tutorial, I'll show you a really good video you can watch instead that really covers all the stuff today in a much more better edited example. Yeah, so it doesn't matter how you submit the assignment as long as it gets submitted. So you can submit your own notebook to Avenue if you want to, or you can submit to through Jupyter Hub. It's the same thing. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so I have a question for you all. You know how to print out a number in Python, like 2020, but how can we print out characters or a word in Python? Like if I wanted to print out hello, how would I do that in Python? Right, so can I just write print? Can I just write print hello? Is that going to work? Well, the great thing about Python is we can test it out. So I'm going to run the code. And as you see, we get an error saying it can't print hello. And that's because by default, Python assumes any like unknown series of characters is some variable. So in order to print out any series of characters or a string in Python, we have to encapsulate that series of characters between quotation marks. And now I can print out hello. If I want to, I can print out hello world. There you go. Okay, cool. And this brings us to the next topic that I wanted to talk about, which are the different types that we can use in Python, right? So we have one type, which is for numbers, known as the int type. And the int type is any type of integer, positive or negative, as long as it's a whole number, okay? Another type in Python is known as the string type. So the string type is any series of characters that are encapsulated in quotation marks. Okay, now I have another challenge for you all. How can I print out both a number and a string in the same print statement? So if I want to say that the current year is 2020, how should I print this out? Can I just print this out as is? Well, let's try it out. If I run this code, I get an invalid syntax error. Okay, I remember previously we printed out two numbers, by just adding them together. Can I do that here? Well, let's try it out. So once again, I get an error because in my print statement, I'm trying to add together two different types, which we can't do in Python. If I want to add two objects together, for the most part, they have to be of the same type. Like here, I'm adding together two ints, right? If I change this to another string, let's say 2020 as the string, then it prints out fine because I'm adding together two of the same type. Now, if I want to put both an int type and a string type in the same print statement, I have to connect the two with a comma. Now I can run the code. Or I could also do casting instead, which I'll talk a bit more about later. Cool, cool. Okay, and so we know how to print out data to the screen. And not only can we print out data, but we can print out different types of data, whether that data is an int or a number, or a string, which is a series of characters or words. I think the next thing that we should learn how to do is how to get input from the user. So we can print out data. How do we get data from the user? How do we go the other way? Well, in order to get input from the user, you have to use the input function. Big surprise. And what the input function does is it prompts the user to enter in some values, and those values are made equal to any variable. So I can make a new variable. Let's say that this variable is user input. I can make that equal to the prompt, whatever the user input is. And then I can test this out by printing out that variable. Okay, let's try this out. Okay, so let's suppose I enter in some random user input. Let's say hello. And then what happens is Python takes that input, it makes it equal to the variable user input, and then we can test that by printing it out. Cool. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do next is make a simple input-output program. So I'll make a new variable. I'll call this year, and I'll make it equal to user input. And what this is going to do is I'm going to prompt the user to enter in some values. Now, the user will probably want to see some text to make them understand what they should input. So any prompt that I put here will show up when the code runs. So I can say, please enter the current year, so the user knows what's going on. And then, in fact, I can actually cast the entire input to be of a certain type. So this way, I'm forcing the input to be of, actually, I'll make it to be of the int type. There we go. And then I can print out the current year is, and I'll print out the year. And so we have both a string and an int in the same print statement. So I'll connect the two with a comma. Awesome. Okay, and I can run the code. So please enter the current year, 2020. Okay, cool. And then my code runs as expected. Cool, cool. Cool. Okay, so I'll give you guys a minute to just catch up, and I'll take a look at the questions that we're doing. Okay, cool. Okay, I don't see any questions in the comment section, so let's do a coding challenge together, okay? So I'm going to go to these slides, and we'll do the calculator question. So in this question, what we have to do is we have to make a Python program that allows the user, that prompts the user to input two numbers. We'll call them num1 and num2. And then we have to print out the sum of the two entered numbers. So we have to get the input, we have to do some operations on that data, then we have to output the result. So how about you take 2 minutes to get that done, and then we'll move on. Okay. So we'll we'll take this up at like 5:04, okay? All right. Yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying your first month on campus. Yeah, I'm sorry that I don't get the total experience, but you know, I'm sure you guys at least get some nice home-cooked food maybe. It's not too bad. Yeah, so as a McMaster TA, I can offer lessons in both of the official languages on campus, which is English and Toronto Mans. So those are the ways of communication that I can do as a McMaster TA. Yeah. I'm really curious how many of you guys took a coding course back in high school, because it what I found is that like in the tutorials, it's not that well spread. So I've had some tutorials where like everyone took a coding course in high school, and some in which like no one has even coded before. So yeah, I always found that so interesting that like usually it's not that evenly spread. But from the lack of questions I've gotten so far, I feel like you guys are one of the more competent classes or experienced classes. Okay, and cool. I'll take up the guesser problem, and we're almost done, and then we can start the weekend. All right. So I am going to go back to Python. Okay, let's make a new problem. Let's make a new file. So I'm going to go to File and hit New File. And I'm going to save this program as, let's say, calculator. Okay, and so it's really simple, this problem. First, I just have to get the user to input two numbers. So I'm going to write input, and I'll prompt the user by saying, please enter a number, and I'll make this equal to some variable, let's say num1, and I'll cast this entire input as within an int function, so that Python stores the input as an int type. Cool, and then I'll just do this again with num2, and now I have two numbers from the user, and all I'm going to do is print out the sum. I'll say the sum of the two numbers is, and I'll write num1 plus num2, and that's the sum, I hope. And I'll connect the string to an int with a comma. And then I run the code. So please enter a number, let's say 5, and then the second number is 4, and our sum is 9. Wow, okay. Cool. All right, so I guess the next thing that we can talk about is the how to do some logic in Python. So at this point, we can output data, we can input data, we can do operations on that data, but how do we make decisions? How do we add logic to our code to let our program choose what to do based upon the input? Well, the easiest way to do that in code is using a tool called the if statement. And what the if statement does is it allows us to do logic really easily. So the syntax is the following. All I'm going to do is write if. Let's suppose I want to make a program that determines if the number the user enters is equal to 5. So I'll say if num is equal to 5, and in code, equal is represented with two equal signs. I'll say if num is equal to 5, and then any line of code that I write under, for example, print the user entered 5. Any code that is tabbed beneath the if statement will run if and only if this condition is true. Okay, so let's suppose I have another print statement, hello, right here. And now if I run the code and I enter in a number, let's say 5, and so when my code runs, it gets the input, which is equal to 5. It does the comparison, so the input is equal to 5. And so therefore, this print statement is going to be executed. And that's why it says the user entered 5 down here. And then once the if statement is finished executing, just continues executing the next code line by line. Cool. In addition to an if statement, we also have the else statement. So what the else statement does is it executes its code if the if statement is false, right? So here I can type print the user did not enter 5. So now when my code executes, first it's going to check if num is equal to 5. If it is, then this code will be executed. If it's not true, then this code will be executed. So we can try this out again. Let's say I enter 8. Then this line is executed. If I run the code again and I enter 5, then of course this line is executed. Okay, and the last thing that I want to talk about is the else if statement. So the else if statement does its test, its check, if the previous if statement is false. Okay, so let's suppose I have an else if statement saying if the number is equal to 4. And if that's the case, I am going to print out the user entered 4. And I'll change my else statement saying that if this condition is false and this condition is false, then the user did not enter 4 or 5. And let's run the code again. Okay, and so I say, please enter a number. Let's suppose I enter in 5. Then what happens is my code executes, and we see that num is equal to 5. So this code is executed. We print out the user entered 5, and these lines are all ignored. All right, if I run the code again, and I say I enter in 4, and what happens is my code first checks to see if num is equal to 5, and it's not, so this line is skipped. Then the code checks to see if num is equal to 4, and that's true. So this line is printed out, as we see here, and the rest of the else statements are ignored. And let's test out that last else statement. So let's suppose I enter in 3, and this test fails, and this line is the one that's executed. Cool. Okay, with that in mind, I think there's just one more thing I want to talk about, and we'll take up the last problem of today. So Python is so cool because there are so many open source libraries with pre-existing functions that you can access and add to your code. And that's what makes it such a great prototyping tool, because it's so easy to bootstrap and duct tape together a program that does some complex stuff. So one of the nifty public libraries that we can access is called the random library. So I'm going to make a new file, and I'll just save this as random test. Okay, and in my new code, I'm going to import in the random library. And the random library has tons of built-in functions. I'm going to use the function randint, which I hope that shows up. Yeah, randint. And randint, what that does is it generates a random number between 2 bounds. Okay, and actually we can test out and it generates a number between 2 bounds. So I'll talk a bit more about some other stuff later, but let's say, for example, I want to generate a random number between, let's say, 1 and 10 as my domain. And I can make this randomly generated number equal to some variable. Let's call that num. And then I can print out num. Cool. Okay, then I can run my code. And when I run my code, a number is randomly generated between 1 and 10, and that number is 6. If I run it again, this time I get a okay, and if I run it again, I get a 2, a 3, and so on. Cool. Now, if you ever don't know what a specific function does, you can use something called the help function. So let's suppose I'm trying to use the random library in Python, and I don't know how to use the randint function. So I can type random.randint, and I can pass that object into the help function, and it gives me detailed documentation on what the function does and what the parameters are, etc. Cool. Okay, so with that in mind, let's see if we can do the final coding question of the day, and then I'll talk about while loops. So you guys can take on the guesser question. So the guesser question asks you to generate a random number between 1 and 100. Then you have to prompt the user to guess that number. Your code should then print out whether the user's guess is too high, too low, or correct. Okay. So take like 2 minutes until 5:15. Try it out. I'll then take up that question, and we'll talk about while loops and functions really quickly. Cool. And I'll check the comments in the meantime. Another cue. Okay. So the int function is used to cast a value to be a specific type. So let's suppose I have 2020. I have the data 2020, and I want to store that that data inside of a variable. Well, how does Python know to store that data within an int, as an int, or as a string, right? So we can make this explicit to Python by casting the data with one of the 2 types. So I can either cast 2020 to be an int, and I can make that equal to my variable x. And x has inside of it stored the int 2020. Or instead, I can pass x or make x equal to 2020, but cast as a string. Now, when I call x, instead of it being a number, it's a string. Okay? Cool. Okay, so let us take up the coding question. Let me just close my blinds. Sorry, I'll be right back. Okay, so let's take up the coding question. So the question is not too bad. All I have to do is just navigate back to Python, and let's make a new file. I'll save this as, let's call it guesser. Cool. So first thing I have to do is generate a random number. For that, I need the random library. Okay, and then I'm going to make a new variable. Let's call this, ran. That's cool. Or rand, that works too. And I'll say rand is equal to random.randint. And I'll just pass in a random number between the bounds of 1 and 100. Was it 1 and 100 or 0 and 100? Let me check. Between 1 and 100, yeah, cool. Okay, so now I have my randomly generated number. Next, I'm going to ask the user to guess or to enter in some input for what that number may be. So I'll say guess, and guess is equal to input. And the prompt that I'll write is I'll say, please enter a number between 1 and 100. Cool. I'll make this full screen. And I can cast this to be an int just to make it explicitly clear that I'm storing the data as a number. Cool. And then next, I can do some logic on my two variables. So I can say if the user's guess, if that is greater than the number, I'll print too high. And I can say else if the user's guess is less than the randomly generated number, I'll print too low. And last, I'll say, of course, if the number is neither too high or too low, it must be correct. So I'll print out correct. Okay, I'll run my code. So I'll enter a number between 1 and 100. Let's say 27, and that's too low. Okay, cool. But let's suppose that I want to keep on executing the code or keep on guessing until I get the right number. How can I repeat that process? Well, I can use something called a while loop. And what a while loop does is it's essentially like an if statement, except the code keeps on repeating until the test is true. So I can say while my guess is not equal to the random number, so while the guess is incorrect, I can then say if the guess was too high, to print too high. And if the guess is neither equal to rand and it's neither too high compared to rand, well then the guess must be too low. And then what I can do is I can just prompt the user to enter a number again. Okay? Just prompt the user to enter a number again and keep on guessing until they get the right number. And once I exit this while loop, I must have the correct number. Cool. Let's run this code. So please enter a number between 1 and 100. Okay, let's say 50. Too low. Okay, let's say 75. Too low. Okay, let's say 85. Too low. Okay, let's say 90. Too high. Okay, let's say 87. Too low. 88. Correct. There we go. And there is our guesser. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in my last minute of class is how to make custom functions. So in Python, not only can we access and call pre-existing functions and built-in functions, but we can actually make our own functions. So the basic syntax on how to do this is just to write def define followed by the function name. Let's suppose that's guesser. And then 2 brackets followed by a colon. And now any code that is tabbed beneath this function will be called whenever the function guesser is called. Right? So let's suppose I put all this code beneath the function. If I highlight and tab, is that? Yeah, okay, never mind. And now all this code will be executed whenever guesser is called. Now, I want to stress this might not be the best format to build your function, but I just wanted to iterate or kind of explain what the general method is. But later on in class, we'll talk about better techniques and protocols to follow when making a function. Okay. But in the meantime, just keep in mind that if I call this function right now, or run this code right now, nothing will happen. The code in here will only be executed when guesser is called, right? And so now if I run the code, it runs the guesser program accordingly. And I don't want to run it again, so I'm going to press Control-C to kill my code. And in fact, because we've already compiled this once, I can call the function again in the console window, and that'll once again call all of this code right here. Awesome. So a few things. If any of the stuff I talked about today is perhaps didn't mesh together totally, or any of it went over your head at all, that is totally okay. It's your first lesson. So what I would recommend is if you want to, you can actually check out this old video if you want more of a lecture format. And this old video right here called McMaster Python Tutorials for Beginners. If you have ad block, maybe you can skip the ad. Sorry, my ad block's not working in incognito. But basically, you can use this one. And this video, it's a bit better because it's like pre-edited. So I have like captions and stuff if you want more of like a lecture style thing. Or if the stuff is super simple, maybe you can answer the problems without any additional help. But yeah, I'll be on here for like another 5 minutes if any additional questions, or you can email me. So at the very least, I hope everyone can get these 2 coding questions done. And if you can, then you're well set to do the assignment on the 27th. Okay, cool. All right, so if that's if everything's good, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next week. This recording, along with all of the other videos, are all online, so you can check them out there. If you guys don't like YouTube, that's totally okay. Cool. Just let me know, and if enough people let me know, I'll use Microsoft Teams or whatever else you guys want to use instead. It's all the same for me. Okay, cool. Let me check the comments. Okay, I see no new comments. All right, so if I don't get any more questions in the next like minute or two, I'll probably sign out then. Let's say 5:25. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Yeah, it's going to be some great weather this weekend. Enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah, I hope you guys have a great semester. Cool, and I'll be on, but you guys are welcome to sign out or leave whenever you like. Cool. Alrighty then. Let me just see if I missed any comments or any questions. I don't see any. I think I talked about all of these. Yeah, so once again, I respect your guys' academic diligence, setting up for a Friday afternoon tutorial. And Dika looked out by getting the morning ones. All right then. So I think I have no more questions. So yeah, have a great weekend, guys. Hope you enjoy your time. Best of luck. Take care. Bye.